Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Touch One Life, Touch Millions, the podcast. I am your host, Dr. Eve, community health and human service educator and qualitative researcher. I am super excited to be on this journey with all of you in life, business, and career. We have another exciting topic today. And as I wait for our team to come into the room, I am excited to talk with you. We have been studying a body of work, 15 secrets successful people know about time management. It is a body of research that was conducted by a New York Times bestselling author Kevin Kruse. And we have been taking bite sizes at this chapter for weeks now, and we are excited to be implementing strategies that will help us to, how do we say this? Are we really managing our time? Are we really looking for more time? Or are we looking for solutions to deal with the amount of time that we have? We all have the same amount of time, 1,440 minutes a day. And with that said, we don't have more time, but we have things we have to get done. And so this week, I am super excited about diving into chapter 15. Energy is everything. Energy is everything. And it has been a really amazing chapter to dissect because it really is all about maximizing your energy. This chapter, the author saved for last. And I love the way that he unveils the topic because there were many stories. He starts with the question of, would you like the real secret to completing 12 hours of work in just an 8-hour day? Would you? You can't get more time. We all know that. We have 1,440 minutes in a day. Only more energy. And what was exciting about the word, looking at energy, the word energy. Let's dissect that word. Let's look it up so that we understand fully what Webster says about the word energy. Energy, by definition, means the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. And we know that at the onset of our day, at the time we open our eyes, we are beginning to expend physical and mental energy to fulfill our activities of the day. This power is derived from the utilization of physical or chemical resources, especially to provide light and heat or to work machines. So we're going to go with definition number 1, the strength and vitality required for sustained physical or mental activity. So let's dive right in because our team has not showed up yet today, and so we will admit them as they roll into the room. But what I want to do is begin to be a good steward over time. And so the author goes on to talk about you can't get more time, only more energy. Well, how do we get more energy when we're struggling to with the time that we have? He asked the question, what if the ultimate time management secret isn't about time at all. Now, that was a really good question. What if it's not about time at all? He says you can't manage time. No matter what you do, you will have the same 24 hours tomorrow, or like we say here, the same 1,440 minutes you will still have. So what's going to be required is that we maximize the energy. We must maximize the energy that we have. I have been looking at statistics. There has been in the news, we all have been seeing it for ourselves. Red Bull all over, like their bodies are rejecting, the Red Bull. They have been consuming so much of it, trying to maintain energy to fulfill the task that they have to do physically and mentally in every day. And a lot of that is because they don't have the energy. So he asked the question, when you think about Red Bull, how many of you actually read the same paragraph over and over and you're like, why is this not sinking in? Have you ever read the same paragraph over and over? Okay, what about zoning off into space? Like you've been working on something and all of a sudden you find yourself zoning off into outer space somewhere. What about getting sleepy after lunch? Oh my goodness, I can relate to that one big time. Getting sleepy, going after a heavy lunch. Most of the time it's because I used to think, oh, it's this heavy lunch. Most people are tired after lunch. Please don't invite me to a meeting after lunch because I'm really going to be sleepy and I am not my best self after I have eaten a meal. They call that itis. How about, have you ever fallen asleep at your desk? Have you ever fallen asleep mid-work, in the middle of a meeting? Have you ever fallen to sleep? Now, y'all, I'm guilty of all of these things. And the other one he says is, what about brainstorming sessions? And it's a brainstorming session because you are supposed to come up with some brilliant ideas. And you don't have any ideas. You're just brain fogged, right? If you said yes, like me, to any of these, then you can personally understand that our physical and mental energy varies and that it has direct effect on our productivity. Remember, we're talking about energy is everything. You can't get more time, only more energy. So, in the words of Will Dean, an Olympic rower for Canada, in his words, he says, don't sacrifice sleep. Sooner or later, it will catch up with you. You won't perform at your best and you will get sick. Sleep. Could sleep be the problem? We know that consumers have bought 4 billion cans of Red Bull each year. Each year, reportedly making $600 million in annual revenue because of sleep deprivation. All because of sleep deprivation. So I thought that was interesting because we now see in the news how so many people's lives are being affected because of Red Bull, because they are trying to have that physical and mental stamina because they haven't had enough sleep. Let me chime into our guest who's come into the room. Welcome aboard, ma'am. I have really missed you.
Hi.
Welcome back. Welcome back. I saw you were in Dubai and doing all kinds of amazing things. We are recording over here and here. And so wanted to just make you aware of that. Good to see you, Shawnee. Tell us about how was your trip?
It was amazing.
Good.
It was my first time being out of the country that far.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lovely experience,
It's a beautiful,
real lovely.
Yeah, it's a beautiful and exquisite place. Very a luxury.
Yes, it is.
Yes, I went in 2018 on a book tour. We were launching our book, and we went there as speakers. It was a beautiful place. Stayed on the marina down there in Dubai, and all the beautiful excursions and visiting of Abu Dhabi and all the places there. Did y'all get to visit Abu Dhabi?
You could if you wanted to, but I didn't.
Okay. Well, welcome.
I took some time to rest.
Yes, welcome back. So we were in the middle of a conversation talking about this chapter, energy is everything. And so let me ask you this: have you gotten some rest?
Yes, ma'am. Because I did not play about getting my rest when I was out there. Because I saw some people walking around looking like zombies.
Yes, because they're day off. It's a whole day and night and day. Yeah. So did you have you adjusted back to the time here?
Yeah, I had no issues.
Oh, good.
Nope, I had none. When I got in Sunday, I went to bed the time that I would go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up the time that I would wake up.
All right, so good.
So I've had a smooth transition coming back.
Well, welcome back home. We are in chapter 15. Again, I was sharing with my audience here about what the author was talking about. He saved this chapter specifically towards the end because he asked the question, what if this was never about time management at all? And I thought that was interesting when I started reading this chapter because, wow, we only have 1,440 minutes to manage in our day, and we can't get no more of that. So what are we really doing here? Do we need more time to manage more time, or do we need more energy? So as he began to open up the chapter, he starts to talk about the Red Bull Nation and people who have, really the investment that people have made into the Red Bull because they don't have enough sleep. They're not getting enough sleep, and how that is affecting people's physical and mental ability to function. So we went through had a few questions talking about, when we are in the middle of something and reading a paragraph over and over and it doesn't sink in, or, zoning off into space in the middle of a report, sleepy after lunch, all the things that I think many of us have experienced before. I know I have fallen asleep at my desk. I've done that a time or two in the middle of a meeting. I have found myself nodding, or what you call dipping. We call it dipping. Or couldn't come up with any good ideas if you were in a brainstorming session. So these things do happen to people. And so he started talking about the chronic brain fatigue that people experience. Even it's no way to handle the chronic brain fatigue, that taking Red Bull was no solution for the brain fatigue. So there was a story. A writer starts to talk in the story that he introduces about this topic. There's a young writer, and she realizes that she's a writer, but she's not writing enough. She's writing an average of 500 words. She's trying to manage her time writing, time for writing, just to, prioritizing it to try to do better. She took all the steps that were discussed in previous chapters that we have already discussed. And but what she noticed was that all of those things helped to a degree, but then she noticed that writing became easier at a certain time, like around 8 in the morning. So she began to evaluate what her body, her physical and mental her physical and mental capacities were like during certain times of the day. And I think that was a good analysis for her, because what she inevitably discovered was that she was able to improve her writing. She was able to improve it 750 to 1,000 words more, because she based it on how she felt in the moment. Her writing produced dramatically different results because it was based on how she felt in the moment. So she did some adjustments to her time, but still yet we have another in your own words that Johnny B. Truant says, self-publishing podcast says, I have to know when I'm at my best for my most important work, morning for writing fiction, when I tend to slack off after meetings or podcasts, and when I can get by with relatively mindless work in the afternoons. What about you, Johnny? How, you have a very busy role as a social worker, and you're constantly moving with client work. How does that work for you? Do you resonate with any of the things here that the author is speaking about?
Yes, ma'am. My schedule can be a little overwhelming. But I will say this: I will get my rest. I don't play around with that, because I realize it is very critical in my productivity. I don't use a lot of things, but I was a part of the Red Bull Nation probably about 4 years ago. That's when I was starting my business as having my hair salon, and they came out with all these fruity flavors of Red Bull, and I started drinking them, and you go to the store and it's buy one get one free.
Oh, and wow!
So you got a refrigerator full of
marketing. And
one day I ended up feeling jittery, and I was just like, you know what? This ain't it. This not it.
Right.
It's not it. I need to go to bed. I don't need to be trying to stay up longer than what I need to. And so I started getting rest, and I made rest a priority. And I function so much better, because one thing I'm going to do is when my body tells me I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. I'm not going to fight it.
I'm
awesome. Not going to fight it.
Do you get at least 7 hours of sleep?
Yes, because I go to bed. Most nights I go to bed 8:30, 9 o'clock.
That's good. That's really good.
Now, I am an early riser.
Okay.
But I don't always physically be moving, because I read my Bible and a lot of things before I start my day, because I believe the Holy Spirit speaks to me before my mind starts thinking about other things.
That's right.
And so that time, and the reality is I'm on watch at 4 o'clock in the morning. Every morning I work up naturally at 3:40 or 3:45.
That's wonderful.
And so I naturally wake up at that time, which I know now that is
your watch time.
That is the time of watch. I am a prayer of mercy.
Amen.
And so I pray for mercy during that watch, and that doesn't tire me. It doesn't tire me to be in prayer and praying, and then I start my day at like 6 o'clock.
Right. I was looking at you mentioned that. I was looking at a scripture where Paul was talking about in Philippians. Let's see, where was it? I'm looking for it now. Okay, hold on. I'm looking for it. I just had it, and for some reason it just bleeped away. But I gotta grab it. Just go ahead. Okay, here it is. he was talking about in Philippians 2:13 through 23, because we trying to really make sure that we have, that no matter what we're discussing in these chapters, that we are aligning it with what God's word says about it. And oh, God just went away again. For some reason, hold on just a second. It was, and let's just get right to it before I lose it again. Philippians 2:13 through 23. And it talks about that energy is God's energy, and energy deep within us. God himself willing and working at what will give him the most pleasure. Do everything readily and cheerfully. No bickering, no second guessing allowed. Go out into the world, giving us instructions about this energy. Go out into the world uncorrupted, a breath of fresh air in this squalid and polluted society. Provide people with a glimpse of good living and of the living God. Carry the light-giving message into the night. So I'll have a good cause to be proud of you on the day that Christ returns. You'll be living proof that I didn't go to all this for nothing. And he goes on through 23. But it's interesting because as the author begins to share more in this chapter, I can see why sleep was also important for us to do the work. That why he also tells us that our bodies are his temple, holy and to be holy and acceptable unto him. And so as the author goes on to talk about how we can move through the cycles, this particular story with Monica, the writer, some of the things she had to do was sprint and rest. She told herself, sprint and rest. Like we don't have to like just be on this continuous, I got to get it done. But sometimes we have to just sprint 25 minutes and then rest, a little bit. Walk away. Or use some different tools even, because God wants us to do everything decent. He also wants us to be rested in the things that we do. So what do we have to do in the world? What tools can we use also alongside being good stewards for the work that he has called us to do? So she utilized, instead, of course, when we are writers, we're using the keyboards and we're typing, but you now have dictation. You now have the ability to dictate. So she used, instead of using the keyboard, she used dictation. Another thing she did was she talked about, the physical side of things. And this one I resonated with a lot. And that was dictate while walking, right? Because let me share something with you. The author said earlier that, have you ever been reading something, the same paragraph over and over again, and it wasn't sinking in? Well, I automatically thought that was a disability in my life. It was just I was differently abled. But what I used to do was read all my chapters. Instead of reading to understand, because I wasn't absorbing it the first time, I would read it into the phone, the BlackBerry phone. It was a BlackBerry at that time. And I would just read what I needed to understand, and then I would go walking. So it's amazing how the author put all these things together. The fact that, we can have you ever read something over and over and not sunk in? That's why I said I resonated with all of this. But then I also knew that it was something that I was dealing with and had to figure out, just like this author did. The writer did. The only way she figured it out, she's evaluated and said, I got to dictate this. Not only did she dictate it, but she dictated and walked. Now, that's the part that got me. Dictating and walking, because I would go walk on the treadmill and re-listen to what I just read into this thing. That's how I perfected my scholarly work, that's how I got it done. But I also realized that the walking part was a part of my learning style. It was a part of me having to do, like, I was an audio learner. So hearing myself, just reading it was not enough. I couldn't consume it. I couldn't get it. But hearing it meant I had to either hear it from some recorded source, or I was going to have to record it myself. I recorded it myself. But then I'm also a tactile learner, kinesthetic, like doing things while I'm. So I walked and listened to it, and boy, did I get, like, it was just amazing. So she talks about how that expanded her ability and how she thought about these different methods, which improved her writing over time. She writes better, faster now. You know, she talks about that a lot in her new book, Write Better, Faster, using some different tools and techniques. Time yourself, rethink tools, take more breaks. So that was really, really, really good. He went on to say, in their own words, here's another one saying, let me stop for a second. Did that resonate with you at all? The techniques that she used to.
Yes, because I was looking at them and I was just seeing, like, for me, productivity, I kind of operate in the same manner. It's like I sprint and then I take a break. You know, and I have some people in my life who do not understand why I will take a nap in the middle of the day.
Right.
Because I only have so much time free to myself, and then I go on a whole nother shift because now my children are home.
Right.
And have things they have to do. So we got to make it through the night routine.
The day routine.
Got to make it through the night routine. And, you know, it's just certain things that we have to do. But there's times if I don't take a nap, they might be on autopilot.
Right.
I'm just kind of
crashing.
And so you have to, I'm stretched. And then they're like, I'm kind of dictating, but I'm really tired. And so taking a nap, doing everything I need to do at work and getting finished by a certain point, and then having some time to myself to rest, even if it ain't a nap, but just having some time to rest. If I go into the next shift and I have enough energy to get me through until it's time for us to go there, but everything is completed. And so rest throughout the day is so important for me.
That's an interesting segue, because the author starts talking about the most productive people take more breaks. Welcome to the call, Aisha. Welcome. How are you?
I'm well.
Welcome.
Nice to join.
Yes, we are talking on. We're on chapter 15, talking about energy is everything. I hope you all have had a chance to read this, because I have really enjoyed this chapter. It speaks to me in so many ways, and I was just breaking that down to Shani. How the author opens says, what if it's not really time we're trying to manage, but we just actually need more energy to be more productive, right? And so he talks about the nation, Red Bull Nation, the effects and impact of that. He leads with a story about productivity and the writer who adjusted her time and took some different steps to be a better writer, a more productive writer. How she rethought about some tools and times. And then he segues into the discussion about the most productive people take more breaks. Have you had a chance to read the chapter? Anyone? Aisha, Raquel. Hey, Raquel, welcome to the space.
No, I have not.
That's okay. It's enough. We gonna walk. We walking through, because I know because you are managing your time. So I'm bridging the gap through some discussion and relative process of association. So the most productive people, he goes on to talk about, takes more breaks. He mentions the Tony Schwartz, founder of the Energy Project, teaches that human beings are designed to pulse between expending energy and renewing energy. Expending energy and renewing energy. You know, I thought about that when he mentioned that, and how I was on this exercise journey. Do you remember the Orange Theory, Aisha?
Yes.
And
yes.
Yes, and how it has you you sprint for, you got to stay within a certain zone for like 12 minutes.
Yeah, it's a high intensity workout, and they're tracking your
Heart rate.
so you can keep it at the level to burn your most calories.
Exactly, to be most productive. And I started thinking about that, and I was wowed, because that's literally a very effective theory. What if we could apply that, just as this man is saying here, Tony Schwartz, the Energy Project? I'm gonna have to look up that project because I want to know more about it. Although he shares here about how naturally moving from full focus and energy to physiological fatigue every 90 minutes. So he's saying his research shows that humans naturally move from full focus and energy to physiological fatigue every 90 minutes. Our body sends out these signals to rest and renew. You know, I noticed that sometimes even when I'm in the garden, because I got so much done in a week and a half. I was on this mission to get it before September was over. So much was to be done. And what I noticed was that I would also do the same thing in the garden. I would go full speed for like minutes, and then I would sit down and rest and look at my work. But I would sit down, drink some water, and look at the work and get back up and do some more. So I can see that pattern. He says our body sends out these signals, but we override them. When we override them with coffee, energy drinks, or sugar, just by tapping our own reserves until we are depleted. How often have you had, said in the afternoon, you said, let me just have a cup of coffee? Or first thing in the morning, you say, I can't start my day without a cup of coffee. You get started with that cup of coffee, but before you know it, if you haven't had enough rest, regardless, you're going to tap out. You're going to crash. What it does to your sugar, it brings your sugar to a certain level, and then after it maximizes, it plummets, right? And so it depletes the energy from you. Anybody have any comments or want to share about, have you done that? Coffee, energy drinks, and sugar? How did it affect you when you experienced those things without having proper rest? You said you wonder if this varies for sex. I don't know. It may. We have to take a look into the story to see.
I just wonder, because I know for me, I agree that there is biological ebbs and flows with your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to align my energy ebbs and flow when I'm productive for writing. So in the morning, that's when I'm clear and I can write. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, I do need to get up, walk around.
Right.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
I also find it the same thing with my hormones, because at different times of the month, you know, I'm at peak hormones. Sometimes I'm all over the place. So even with hormonal changes, I think as women, we need to tap into that. Because you may say, oh, you know, I'm just depressed. I don't know what's going on. It's just our hormone levels are low. So I think as women particularly, we also have to look at how our hormones impact our energy, and also what we need to plan, you know, during that time. Like if you have something where you need to be high energy for, and if you have the ability to plan around that, I would take that into consideration too.
Well, I must say I agree with that, because and you're going to see that the author also taps into the hormonal side of things too. So you are actually spot on. You're spot on in talking about, because we did just talk about the writer who felt like she writes best at a certain time. And how she created different methods to increase her productivity in writing with stop, go. Kind of like the pulse method that, you know, the Tony Schwartz is talking about. So he moved moves on further. Anybody else have a comment about that before I move into the Draconian group or another one of the methods that or further enhance on this philosophy? Anyone? Raquel? Okay, so Schwartz suggests that we needed to purposely take short breaks every 90 minutes throughout the day to drink water, walk, or eat a healthy snack. And as we go on, you're going to see why that's so important. His mantra is pulse and pause. Pulse and pause every 90 minutes. So in the drug GM group installed some software that tracked the time and productivity of all of their employees. They discovered that their top 10% most productive employees didn't actually work any more hours than anybody else. In fact, they took more breaks. On average, this high productivity group worked for 52 minutes and then took a 17-minute long break. Now, many companies right now, and I've known people who have gotten fired, they were very productive employees. But because they were work at home and they have this thing where your mouse, certain rhythms has to be happening, that they're tracking you, that you have to be online the entire time. But these were very productive employees who may have taken a break from their mouse, who were then later fired because of different software like this. But what this is saying is that these people were actually their most productive employees, and they took 52 minutes on and 17-minute breaks. They used the pulse and pause cycle. It worked best for them because it worked best for them. And I think that's something to consider. Companies need to consider before they, have this mandatory, you got to be at your keyboard like a workhorse, right? Because I don't function that way, and I'm sure many of you don't, right? What are your thoughts about that?
I think, companies or organizations have to consider that with the push on well-being. So we see, and particularly with policies, eliminating policies on DEI, now they're being replaced with care, opportunity, belonging, well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great strategy. I know it happens at my job all the time where people just sit out in the lounge area and just chat for a few minutes. And we're not, there are no consequences because we're taking that time. It's actually, it helps improve that.
And relationships.
It's interesting though. And this is kind of, I'm going to talk about some of what I'm learning in my program, is that, when they're looking at flexible work arrangements, they think it's good for our employees of color because they experience less microaggressions. So I wonder, taking breaks, if you are interacting with your other colleagues, how does that, if you're experiencing microaggression, how does that also, I'm sorry, going off topic.
Well, that's a pretty deep topic, and I would love to have that conversation at some point, because what we have been asking for, even in the redefining of well-being as the highest form of equity, we see that now they're replacing that whole concept. They're replacing DEI with that whole concept of redefining well-being as the highest form of equity versus, diversity and equity and inclusion, because it's been, bans from. But what we learned is our cognitive capacity declines throughout the day. That's just the way it is. You ever found yourself like the Arthur said earlier, where you can have lunch and after lunch you go into a meeting and you sleepy or you're tired, or your brainstorming session and you can't come up with no ideas, or you fall asleep right in the middle of the meeting. These are things that actually happen. But what the author then goes on to say is energy starts with health. Now, this was the part that, really defined the chapter for me, because all of this, after all is said and done, energy is all about health. It comes from getting enough sleep. And I want to talk about that because I did a little bit of research and I want to share with you some things that I found. So he says energy starts with health. The biggest way to increase your overall energy levels is, of course, to take care of your health. You already know this, but keys to productivity include getting enough sleep. It was the number one, right, Shawnee? Getting enough sleep. 33% of adults, this is some additional research I did. 33% of adults get less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep per night. Sleep is essential to a healthy lifestyle, and the lack thereof puts the body at risk for poor health, including damage to your DNA. I'm like, DNA? Wow, this affects my DNA? That's deep, right? Shawnee says she getting her rest at all costs.
Yes.
Now, what I do know is, go ahead, say that again. Say that again, Shawnee.
Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little. You can put it in the chat. I'll read it. So I remember we had this conversation even last week. We were talking about, I know that Raquel was present with us last week, which was so amazing to see her face. She's at an appointment today, but she was sharing how working at night is affecting how it affects her circadian rhythm. And so the research really spoke about that too and gave some strategies for better sleep to incorporate dietary support. She says, Shawnee says, I believe in getting rest after my Red Bull season. Right. Because she had shared about, having been a part of that nation, Red Bull Nation, needing that because she wasn't getting enough rest. But she also realized that she started feeling, anxious and having little rhythms and palpitations or whatever. And she realized that, okay, this is not for me. I just need to go to sleep, and that's what for most of us is all we need is just to go to sleep. So some more things that I discovered in my research was strategies for better sleep to incorporate dietary support. Avoid stimulants. Avoid any type of stimulants that affect your brain's function to achieve a stable circadian rhythm. That's what Raquel was speaking about. Her circadian rhythm is off because of having to work that night shift. So it's hard for her to adapt to daytime productivity because her brain has become accustomed to being up all night, and not having enough rest to do anything during the day. Another thing that they said was to avoid alcohol, spicy foods, and large meals 3 hours before bedtime. I have had my share of experiences with spicy foods and large meals going to bed. Anybody else? I'm telling you, there is nothing like waking up to acid. Has anyone ever had that experience where you just had an acid just coming up and you had to wake up or you were going to die? Because it was really the acids from your stomach were about to strangle you? That is the worst feeling in the world. Yes, Aisha, itis. It is. It's it's itis. But yeah, and the spicy foods, and minimize the alcohol because it's also a stimulant. They said avoid caffeine containing foods like soda, teas, coffee, and chocolate, right? So some recommendations are teas that don't have caffeine in it, like chamomile, or one of my favorites, lavender. Y'all, I finally got my lavender leaves from last year that I dried. Finally got them jarred. I was able to, one tree I pulled down, harvest. I've got 5 more. And I got 5 jars of lavender from it. I'm so excited. And I love lavender for a lot of reasons. But, they put lavender in baby lotions, lavender in the bath, lavender tea. You can do a lot of things with lavender. So it's recommended. And also valerian root, valerian, and passion flower. Now, valerian, I don't like too much. It smells bad. Anybody ever had valerian? It's a good one, but you got to get past the smell to even want to be bothered. Any of you tried any different things that you want to share here with us about that help you to get to sleep?
I shower at night. That helps, like, relaxes me, or a bath at night. Now I have trouble staying asleep all night, so that's my issue. And so I've used like CBD, and that knocks me out all night. So I'm usually in bed by 10. Go to bed at 10. I'm usually up around 4. So sleeping all night is like, through the night is my issue. So I'm gonna try some of these strategies.
Yeah, they're good. And some other things, thank you for that. Some other things that the research said was incorporate whole foods. Now, the author also mentioned getting enough sleep, minimizing alcohol, minimizing caffeine, eating more whole foods and fewer processed foods, maintaining healthy weight, drinking a lot of water, and exercise. But even in the research supported that. And it says incorporate whole foods, foods rich in magnesium. I thought, wow, I've never heard of that one, which will increase your GABA transmitter that helps slow down thinking. Now, I struggled with that last night. We had a family emergency, and as fatigued as I was at 1:45 in the morning, I was really sleepy, but I couldn't slow my thinking down. I couldn't stop thinking about the emergent situation to go to sleep. I don't know what time I fell asleep, but all I know is I still remember hanging on to the thinking, right? So, things different. It just depends on what's happening in your life that can also affect your transmitters as well. So that's something magnesium, rich foods might help. Some recommendations from experts are leafy greens, legumes, which are beans, nuts and seeds, and of course whole grains. So some of those are whole foods that you should, be consuming. Stay away from processed food. Stay away from the middle of the aisle, y'all. It's so many bad things, and we're hearing it each and every day. More and more and more. We have all heard about, of course, the lack of vitamin D. Some of us don't even know our vitamin D levels. And for all of you on this channel, I recommend that you go get your panels. Get your panels. If you don't do anything else, I didn't want to go to the doctor. I just wanted to get my panels. I called my doctor and I said, hey, I just want to get my blood panels. Can you give me a referral? Of course, they want you to come in. I was like, no, I don't need to come in. I just need my panels. I said, so you telling me that I have to come see you before I can get my blood panels? I said, no, I'm going to go to a lab. So I went to a lab. I paid for it. But, I mean, if you want what you want, you want what you want. And I paid and I got my blood panels, and my vitamin D levels were extremely low. But let me tell you how bad that vitamin D thing will affect your entire body. your mind, your physical man, disease, chronic illness, so many things. Vitamin D is associated with sleepiness, as the author said, insomnia, as the author said, imbalances associated with sleep disturbances. This is the research, what the research is saying now. You can get vitamin D naturally through oily fish like salmon, sardines, and tuna, cod liver oil, and mushrooms. I didn't know about the cod liver oil, but I'm going to have to get me some of that. And most of all, the sun. If you can get to the sun, get out and get in the sun. Allow it to sun kiss you, because we're just beautiful. But because we have a lot of melanin in our skin, we don't absorb the sun as rapidly as our counterparts. So we must not avoid the sun. We need to get in the sun to get more of that sun absorption. Also, the author, the research said, exercise daily. 20-minute walk in a low barrier exercise. Power walk if you can. Intervals, we talked about that Orange Theory. 12 minutes according to the Orange Theory, which is the one that I love. A 12-minute power, and then I'm going to walk it down. I don't just want to walk or for physical exercise, but I do want to lose a little weight. I do want to get to a healthy weight, because that's also a factor in our sleepiness. You know, if you have you ever heard of the a restless leg? Because I know my husband got a restless leg. He rested. I'll feel him jump. Like his leg will jump. I'm like, why is his leg jumping like this? But after reading this chapter and doing the research, I understand now. So also talks about drinking more water, because dehydration does this. And this is the thing, Aisha, you might enjoy. Drinking dehydration causes dry mouth. There you go. It causes dry mouth. It causes dry nasal passages. It causes headaches and increases snoring. So drink some water before you go to bed. You might see a difference. I thought that was interesting. I know you're supposed to drink it as soon as you get up, because the body immediately expends water as soon excretes the water from the nighttime as soon as you get up. So if it's giving away all this water, we probably should be putting some more right back in immediately. So these are some things that I discovered while doing the research in this chapter. And we're going to look at some closing words and some thoughts from you all about what will you do with this information. Were these things that you knew all along? And what will you do differently? We'll stop there. Did this provide more information for you, and what will you do differently now? Anyone?
Yeah, so I think the how to end my day, I'm definitely gonna introduce some of those strategies, like tea, drinking water at night. So I really like that. So I was writing in the chat that I'm gonna go back and read the chapter, just because I do want to maintain good health during this time in my doctoral program, where it's like, okay,
it's also demanding.
Breaks, intentional breaks. I think sometimes I'll break, but I'll just look at my phone, catch up on text messages.
Right.
But instead, getting up, walking around.
Meaningful breaks.
Yeah. So I think those are kind of some of my takeaways, is how to incorporate these strategies and maintain them.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Raquel, are you in a place where you can share? If not, you can just put something in the chat. So the author goes on with some more, when in their words, one of the, here's from a student at the university in Portugal says, work in short bursts of productive work instead of long, unproductive sessions. I think that's a good value add for you, especially in the doctoral program, Aisha. That was one of the things I had to do. I did it in 4 years. Surprisingly, I did it in 4 years. I did not miss a beat. It was 4 to 5 years, and I did it in 4. And I had to have a regiment because I was working full time, and I have 4 kids. So I was taking care of children, the family, and the house, and everything. And so I had to find, of course, I was sharing with Shawnee earlier about how I used to read something over and over again, and I wasn't getting it, and I wasn't understanding why I wasn't getting it. But even reading this chapter takes me way back to that time when I eventually stopped trying to read because it wasn't absorbing. I wasn't absorbing the articles, the books, and materials. So I would read the materials, and I think we've talked about this, the VARK learning styles. And so I started reading the chapters into my BlackBerry because I realized I can hear this and I can keep going and learn, but I can't just sit here and read this because I'm not absorbing this. But I would read it into the BlackBerry, and then I would go walking. I became a scholar with that method. Like, I learned how to learn. Like, it's all mentioned right here. In this one little chapter, it took me way back to a time when I too had to rethink the tools I use, the methods, the time frames, what I was doing at the time, how I was most effective. Please read it. Yeah, read it. It's not that long, maybe about 5 or 6 pages, but it was beautiful. Just mock it up. I mocked the book. I be mocking these books up. I be pulling out these little points. But it was really good. It was really all about energy. It was really all about strategy. It wasn't about time. It was about strategies. So the author says, is it really about time we're looking for? Is it time we're trying to manage? Or is it that we need more energy? And if it's energy that we need, how do we do that? So you have this chapter to reflect on, because it is indeed reflective in this chapter that it was energy, that these individuals who shared their takeaways, how it impacted their lives, we're living proof. Another one said, set a timer for everything you do, because when you have a deadline, you're more productive, right? There was something mentioned in here too. There was a technique called the Pomodoro technique. Have you ever heard of that? The Pomodoro technique. Then another one mentions, I believe that I can get any task completed in 25 minutes, even the ones I hate, when I set a timer. And they have this timer, and I'm going to pull this up. You can pull this up too. Open tomato-timer.com. It's free. It's a free website, and I'm going to put these resources in the article that I'm going to write today on the blog, so you all can get to go back and reflect on that as well. Tomato-timer.com. And he said, and click on it. Hit start on a tomato. And then dive into whatever task. He said, I find myself procrastinating on, and get it done. And he said, she said it was revolutionary for her. Another one was, again, the daily workout. Make intense exercise a daily habit. The more fit I feel, the clearer my mind is, the better decisions I make, and the more success I seem to attract. Now, let's look at how this information applies to an entrepreneur. Could increasing energy and alertness, enabling you to achieve more in the same amount, help you to get more balance in your life? I do. Even showing up here, realizing that last week I talked about this, about the commitment to showing up here every single week. and how there were some days where I wanted to say, you know what, I have to cancel this week. But then I realized, no, you have to show up this week because this is a commitment. But I also realized that today could also be a day of capturing so much beauty. The beauty of conversation, engagement, the beauty of individuals' input, capturing your concerns, your thoughts, your ideas, your recommendations as well to others, sharing the thoughts of intellectual material, and then going back and really showing how all of these things that we mentioned, how can we create content around what the author has told us, so for me it becomes a content day. And I was like, wow, God, that's wonderful. Like, it's no longer laborious for me. I just have to spend one day doing your work, serving your people for a better life, business, and career. As we all grow in all areas of our life, I just show up on this day and create, share, serve, and build power within community. And I thought, wow, that's how it affects me in the entrepreneurship journey. What about you, Raquel? Raquel says she loves a glass of wine on the Shabbat. Is that the Sabbath? I hear you say that often. Okay. Yeah. I hear you use that term often. I just wasn't sure what it meant. So all right now. And so now the next one is, it said, well, how does this apply to an executive? We are all executives, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you're also an executive. Would increasing energy and alertness enable you to do more in the same amount of time? Help you to go get home from dinner with your... Yes, it would. Yes, it would. How about as a freelancer? Increasing energy and alertness help you to be more productive during sleepy afternoons? Right? When you're out there by yourself and you have to work this project and there's no one else around, I'll be having those. I get up and walk or get up and go outside or do something, right? Even students, enabling you to do more in the same amount of time, reduce the number of your all-night cramming sessions. I have found myself there. It is not a good feeling. Or the 11:59 deadline. Why do I always wait and feel like I do my best under stress? I do my best under stress because I have to and because I waited. And let's just call a thing. But why was it always 11:59 before I hit the button? And I'm sweating at that point. But anyway, how about stay-at-home parents? Because they are hard workers as well. And alertness to give you more patience with your family members. Now, the ultimate secret that the author wants you to walk away with today is productivity is about energy and focus, not time. That was the secret of today's session. Productivity is about energy and focus, not time. That's all I have today, everyone. This has been an exciting topic for me. As always, go ahead.
Question. So does it talk, and I'm going to read this tonight, does it talk about shifting your energy?
I guess that in my opinion, after looking at all the recommendations that were listed, remembering that energy is related to your health. If you are, in fact, shifting to a more healthier lifestyle, then you are, in fact, shifting your energy. That would make sense to me.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah, because it's just a matter of just some new practices, and you would definitely shift the energy because if you don't have it, then you have to do some intervention. And the healthy habits is the intervention to get more sleep, to get more, because that seems to be the number one thing was sleep. But how do we get more sleep? It kind of evolved into energy equals health, health equals more sleep, and energy. All of it was intertwined. So look at all these things that the author recommended and the research recommended as intervention tools, and your energy will shift.
Oh, I can't wait to read this chapter.
Yeah, it was small but good. So come back and let us know what you thought. Shoot us a little email or a little draft or something, and let us know how that worked for you. I want to know, because one of the things we want to do in this space is never ever to walk away with having read something, but the wisdom is in applying everything, right? So if we're not going to apply it, what's the point, right? We want change in our lives, and we want change. We're doing this because we want to be the most effective. And we talked about the scripture that we talked about today, and I'm not going to leave without sharing that because you all weren't here at the beginning. When we said in Philippians 2:13 through 23, let that be your scripture for this week. Paul says that energy is God's energy, and energy deep within you. Hold on, pop up. God himself willing and working at what will give him the most pleasure. Do everything readily and cheerfully. No bickering, no second guessing allowed. Go out into the world uncorrupted, a breath of fresh air in this squalid and polluted society. Provide people with a glimpse of good living. That's the part. Provide people with a glimpse of good living and of the living God. Carry the light-giving message into the night, so I'll have good cause to be proud of you on the day that Christ returns. You'll be living proof that I didn't go to all of this work for nothing. Even if I am executed here and now, I'll rejoice in being an element in the offering of your faith that you make on Christ's altar, a part of your rejoicing. So I say all this to say that even in the scripture, it's telling us to use our energy, that energy is God's energy, but God tells us that our body is his temple. So there is, in fact, some things that we must do to have a healthy temple, to have the God's energy that we need to do his work. That's all I got today, y'all. And I appreciate you all for coming. Thank you for our attendees for today. Thank you for another episode right here on the Touch One Life, Touch Millions podcast. And we are super excited to be able to bring to you wisdom and knowledge and understanding, and the beauty of community to share all of the things we are doing to be good stewards of our time in life, business, and career. This is Dr. Eve, your host, community health and human service educator and qualitative researcher. And until next time, go and have the most amazing day. And whatever you do, don't let anyone get in the way on your journey to becoming who God has called you to become. Peace and blessings over here.